morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our live 2022 Easter Retail Webinar event today. My name is Sumay Dippenard, and I'm the Head of Marketing at the Connect Group of Companies. So, with Easter just around the corner, we're very excited to share our insights with you, where the retailers can, in fact, thrive during the perfect storm that we're currently experiencing in South Africa. I would like to start with by saying welcome to our speakers and our guests, and of course a big welcome to the retail business owners as well as industry representatives that has tuned in online. So if you have any questions during the webinar today, kindly make use of the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. And if you would like to join the social media conversation, please use #EasterRetail. And you can make use of the Facebook handle, which is @ConnectFintech. So before we start, I would like to give you just a quick rundown of the event proceedings for today. We will start with a live interview with the CEO of the Connect Group of Companies and also spokesperson for Capital Connect, which is Stephen Helbron, and the host for today, Alicia Seckham. Thereafter, we will look at the latest research study findings on Easter retail trade statistics, as well as consumer and retail trends. And then we will end off with a live interview, and then you are welcome to ask us any questions. But for now, I'm going to hand over to the host for today, Alicia Seckham, a well-known South African broadcast and financial journalist. So Alicia, that's over to you.
Thanks so much, Sumay, for that very warm welcome. Good morning, everyone. It's absolutely great being with you this morning. And Sumay, before I let you go and kick off with this #Easter Retail Webinar 2022, I've got a very quick question for you. Give us an overview of Capital Connect, what it is, and what exactly the company does.
That's probably a very good start for the day. Thanks, Alicia. So Capital Connect is part of the Connect Group of Companies that provide retailers with fintech solutions to have quick access to capital within 24 hours up to 2.5 million rand. So it's really hassle-free, and by that I mean that retailers can simply go to an app, they choose their loan amount, they choose their repayment period, and then within 24 hours the money is in your bank account. So it is to enable retailers, when there is a business opportunity, to quickly grab that opportunity and make sure that you can grow and thrive and not just survive.
Well, it certainly sounds like a no-brainer, but of course this is a model that operates within a very specific context. And during the course of this Easter Retail webinar, we're going to be releasing the results of the latest research study that was in fact commissioned by Capital Connect on Easter sales and consumer and retail trends within the current operating environment. And the question today that we're going to be asking is, can South African retailers thrive and survive amidst a perfect storm? So with this in mind, I'd like to introduce at this point Professor Karel van Aert. He's Director at the Bureau of Market Research, who's going to help us this morning set the scene a bit. So Professor, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Now, uncertainty has gripped economies, whether you're looking at the local economy or those globally, right? And it's triggered a whole lot of volatility as well. So let's run through some of the factors that are contributing to this perfect storm.
Thank you so much, and it's really great to be here today. When you look, for example, at what's happening in the South African economy at the moment, you'll notice that we are facing a huge number of problems. I've recently had the question whether the lifting of the emergency situation will translate into higher levels of economic growth. The problem is that it won't necessarily do that, because we face not just with COVID, but we also face literally with a perfect storm. And that perfect storm include, for example, the impact of the Ukraine war, the problems with respect to electrification in South Africa, unemployment, poverty, social and political instability, etc. And I've just made a list recently of the major factors, and it was over 30 of these factors, and the actual list is actually growing at the moment. So that is what I'm terming the perfect storm, in the sense that there's all these various negative factors, and they're impacting on one another, and they are actually creating a very difficult trading environment for quite a lot of businesses, and especially retailers in South Africa.
Absolutely. Like you say, it's a whole lot of factors that have dealt this massive blow to the economy at large. If we home in specifically, what kind of impact has this had on the retail sector?
Well, it's actually had three major impacts, and this is really technical terms, but I will try to explain that as easy as possible. It firstly had a direct impact, which basically means that quite a lot of retailers felt the impact directly onto their bottom line. And that could, for example, be that with the rising fuel prices, that businesses found that it's becoming more and more expensive to produce. And just another example of that is that they're finding, for example, with input prices rising because of more rising commodity prices, that it's becoming more expensive. That's direct. The second one is indirect. And that indirect is because of the fact that it's not just me as a business that's being impacted by all these factors, but it's also my suppliers. And so because of the fact that the suppliers are, that it's becoming more expensive for them to produce things, to transport that, etc., I have to pay more. But it's also because of my clients that I'm really finding it difficult to ensure that there's sufficient sales, etc., from my side. So that is then the indirect impact. But there's also so-called induced impacts. And a lot of people often don't understand this. And what an induced impact is that quite a lot of my suppliers, as well as myself, because of all these various factors, are finding it very hard to continue their normal sales, and therefore I can't employ more people, or I can't pay my current employees, or even it could even be the case that I have to retrench quite a lot of them. But remember, those people that I employ are the consumers, not just of myself, but also of others. So that's an induced impact in the economy. And what's happening at the moment, because of this incredibly large number of factors creating the perfect storm, every retailer is facing a direct and indirect and an induced impact, and it's growing over time.
Is it all doom and gloom?
No, it's not doom and gloom. The fantastic news is in this regard is that it's your choice how you're going to respond to the perfect storm and these impacts. And what we find at the moment is that quite a lot of retailers have got very negative mindsets. They believe it's just obstacles, etc. While quite a lot of retailers are seeing this as opportunities. So what we'll also be dealing with today is the big question: are you seeing this as obstacles, or are you seeing this as opportunities? And we will also be highlighting quite a lot of things today to show you how you can use this as opportunities to grow and expand your business.
Absolutely. Carol, thanks so much for that, because we're looking at a myriad of factors, right, that are coming into play and hitting hard here. And while it sheds light on where things are at, and of course what the sector is coming up against as well, there is a bit of a glimmer of hope that we can select out of that, despite the fact that we are experiencing these very challenging times. So, Sumay, let's bring you back in here, because while that sets some of the context, for now we're heading into the big reveal, right, where you're going to present some of the findings of the latest study, which looked at past Easter sales trends, and then puts forward the kind of forecasts being anticipated for sales given the kind of trends at play in the current market space. So just to the viewers, before we head to that presentation with Sumay, after the presentation we're going to be playing you a quick 60-second video so you can hear from yourselves from Madi Mecha Tlobatla. He's a business owner of Engen in Diepkloof, Soweto, and he's going to be sharing some of his experience with Capital Connect with us. And then we'll be unpacking some of those research findings with you very deliberately today. And our experts will be in turn sharing some expert advice and tips and tools on how you can make the most of Easter 2022. But for now, Sumay, it's over to you.
Thank you, Alicia. Retailers, journalists, and industry representatives, let's take a deep dive into this research study. Let's see when, why, and how Easter became such a popular trading and shopping period. Well, the hype around Easter sales can actually be traced back to the inception of the Rand Easter Show in 1894. Back then, the Rand Show started with cattle exhibitions, auctions and sales. And as time went by, they started adding other trader sections like motor vehicle sales in 1912. And then gradually the idea of Easter sales spread to the wider South African business audience, giving rise to the Easter sales period as we know it today. It is important to note that Easter sales does not only impact retail trade, but also wholesale and motor vehicle sales. So what's this Easter shopping hype all about? As we know, there are generally loads of promotions and specials around this time of the year, with lots of advertising about these promotions. There's always some shopper excitement created, also known as shop attainment, with Easter egg hunts and bunnies walking around in the shopping malls. I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point. In South Africa, Easter is the next peak trading season, giving an uptick to sales after Black Friday and the festive season periods. Interestingly though, is that with Black Friday, consumers are more prone to buying high-end goods like laptops and cell phones. Over the festive season, they buy a broad range of gifts and hardware, which are costly items. But over Easter, consumers tend to go for cheaper items like the end of the season goods like cakes and linen and clothing. Because Easter is known as the time to spend with family and friends, consumers are buying more party and celebration goodies than usual, like confectionaries and alcoholic beverages. But with that said, many consumers are going to their hometowns and coastal towns for this holiday period, which then also creates a spillover into goods bought from suburban areas to rural and coastal towns. Although we've now seen why there is such a hype for shopping over Easter, this year, however, we have to acknowledge that the Easter sales season is happening during a time when there is an economic and socio-economic storm in South Africa, as Prof. Anand has explained a little earlier. So despite this doom and gloom, there is hope for Easter 2022. And that is really about the retailer's response to find the opportunity to make the most of Easter this year. Let's take a look at retail sales income 2010 to 2022 for general retailers. Honing in on the perfect storm and that there are other threats and or opportunities during this time, let's take a look at how the level of this perfect storm is already impacting on businesses. And the way that a perfect storm impacts on business in general is that it increases volatility during the storm. For example, where there is a normal retail pattern at a particular time, the perfect storm will play havoc with that pattern. If you refer to the green stars, it is very clear from a pattern over the period of 2010 to 2019, just before the COVID pandemic period, that there were real gains because of the Easter season for general dealers. When we look at the red star, there were very strong gains in 2020, and that is due to the pandemic which had just hit South Africa, and consumers were stocking up on essential goods from general dealers. And then again, there were some gains for 2021. According to big data, retailers can also expect to see gains from the 2022 Easter period. In fact, it will be the most gains seen since the Easter sales period started in our country. What is interesting in this regard is, if you look at the red block for the period 2020 to 2021, you will notice how the volatility over the Easter sales season was clearly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The reason is because many people have lost their jobs, Because of the storm and the pandemic, in fact, over 2 million people in South Africa have lost their jobs since the pandemic started. And these people need to buy bulk shopping and buy necessities when goods are offered at a very reduced price. So many people are waiting for the Easter sale season to do so, where they can do bulk buying at discounted rates and stock up on necessities when it is advertised at a special offering. The Easter period provides the perfect opportunity for consumers to do this kind of shopping. While this is a good opportunity for general dealers, the question is, will all general dealers gain? And the answer is no. Some general dealers have new offerings and channels in place to benefit despite the perfect storm that we are experiencing. So, only those retail businesses that are creative and offer a diversified offering base will have the biggest gains. Now, let's have a look at retail sales income for the period 2010 to 2022 for food, beverages, tobacco and specialized stores. This is typically like a Woolies Food, which is a specialized store only providing food and some also liquor. If you refer to the green stars, there were gains over Easter for the period 2010 to 2019. However, suddenly with the onset of the perfect storm since 2020, these stores took a huge knock, with that red star going down. Interestingly, shops that started offering cakes and delis, cooked and ready-made meals were the real winners over the Easter period. From looking at big data, we can anticipate that this trend will continue in 2022. If you look at the red block, you can clearly see that there is an increased volatility during the perfect storm for the period 2020 to 2022. It is foreseen that this volatility with respect to retailers in food, beverages and tobacco will continue. In fact, there won't be an old normal for the specialized stores sector. It is crucial for this sector to creatively adapt in order to survive over the long term. However, if they focus their trade on confectionaries and delis, then they will have an uptick in sales. But these retailers must keep in mind that they have strong competition on this front with the likes of bigger retail chain stores who have a very enticing offering on these goods. It's quite interesting so far, but let's take a look at retail sales income 2010 to 2022 for retailers of pharmaceutical and medical goods as well as cosmetics and toiletries. It's very clear from the past pattern that the impact of Easter sales for this sector were not so strong. You'll notice that there weren't any spikes during the Easter period, if you compare it with trade throughout the year. And this is because consumers were scared of the unknown. They didn't know how long the lockdown will last for and what the impact of the pandemic will be. Out of fear, people were doing panic buying and stocked up on mates, cosmetics and toiletries. We've also seen a trend over the last few years that big pharmaceutical companies have diversified their offerings to include a variety of goods, in addition to medication and toiletries, which I'm sure we have all seen. Okay, well, now over to retail sales for retailers of textiles, clothing, footwear and leather goods for the period 2010 to 2022. If you refer to the green stars for the period 2010 to 2019, besides the Black Friday sales spike, there was a clear up in sales for clothing, footwear and leather goods during the Easter trade. However, a lot of these purchases are end-of-season sales. And we must note that when people go to their hometowns from the cities, they take with them food and clothing and shoes to give to their families. From this pattern we see, after the spike of Black Friday and the festive season, you have a lower growth in January and February, but then in March and April, the Easter sales season brings about a big turnaround for this sector. And look at the big turnaround for Easter 2020. If you look at the blue star, despite the lockdown, it's expected that this sector will benefit from sales in Easter this year too. It's important to note that this sector is also seriously impacted by the volatility of the perfect storm. There are many of these retailers who will gain a lot from April 2022 because they are diversifying their offerings. So overall, we anticipate to see that the 2022 upcoming Easter trade will have a positive impact for retailers in textiles, clothing, footwear and leather goods. Now let's look at retail sales income for 2010 to 2022 for retailers in hardware, paint and glass. If you refer to the orange stars, it is clear that during the festive season and also to some extent the Black Friday period, people buy hardware products to fix and renovate their homes over the December period. But there's not a clear indication that this sector makes big gains over the Easter period. If you refer to the blue stars, you will note that this sector has gained some normality from 2021 after the time that they could not trade in 2020 due to lockdown restrictions. And on to total retail sales income for the period 2010 to 2022. If you refer to the green stars, it is evident that over the period 2010 all the way to 2022 that there is some upward movement in retail sales during the April season, but in 2021 and 2022 overall it is lower than expected. One of the main reasons for this is that there is a displacement effect. Yes, some retail subsectors are gaining, like the grocers, clothing stores, specialized stores and pharmacies are doing really well. But then there are other sectors where people are buying less and less goods from. Because of this displacement effect, there is not such a strong gain for the retail sector as a whole because of Easter sales. Again, it is important to note that the volatility for the retail sector as a whole due to the perfect storm is continuing. Let's look at which retail and motor trade sales sector will gain most through the Easter sales. On the retail side, general dealers like supermarkets, for example, will see an uptick in food, beverages and confectionery sales. The food, beverages, tobacco, specialized stores like liquor stores, for example, will also see a nice uptick in Easter sales. Then, textile, clothing, footwear and leather goods, because of the end of season sales and people who want to take goods to families over Easter, will experience a good Easter trade. And lastly, new vehicle sales and car parts will see a positive spike for the upcoming Easter trade. Having focused on the retail space, let's now look at consumer interest in Easter for the period of 2010 to 2022. When we look at the green stars, the data shows us that there are very clear spikes showing consumer interest over Easter year on year. What is fascinating though is that for consumer interest in Easter 2019 to 2022, the spikes are becoming bigger, and we find that the spikes are also becoming wider. As an example, the expectation for 2022, the real Easter sales season, will not just be over the Easter long weekend. It has already started since the 15th of March and will continue until the 20th of April. It is important to note that retailers will drag out the Easter season with promotions and specials for as long as they can. So we can expect Easter trade to last even until the end of April. A good example of this is the Heyday special that will stretch beyond the Easter festivities, having a very positive impact on sales. We now dive into the implications of consumer interest in Easter for retailers. As mentioned earlier, it is how you as a retailer will respond to the perfect storm that will impact your sales results. Here are some practical tips. Tip number 1, retailers must have strategies in place to attract heightened consumer interest and to capitalize on Easter sales. Secondly, retailers must buy stock early and ensure that they offer in-store and online capabilities. In fact, this is the point where I must emphasize that retailers must take advantage of quick access to opportunity capital, like that of Capital Connect, to stock up in advance and make bulk purchases at discounted rates to increase profit margin, or buy delivery scooters, or have the funds to invest in an e-commerce platform, or simply to improve the in-store shopping experience. Thirdly, ensure that you advertise and make sure that when you advertise that you carry stock of those items. In-store stock availability and deliveries should be managed very well. And then lastly, don't overpromise and underdeliver. For example, if you say that goods will be delivered in 3 days, then it should. Retailers must have actionable solutions for consumers to mitigate the impact of the perfect storm. What this means is that you must be cognizant of the fact that your customers are poorer, still a continuing impact of COVID, low economic growth rate, and all the various factors that we have showed earlier today. The real winning retailers are those who are able to respond quickly and optimally to the perfect storm. Given all of the research findings, what can be expected for Easter 2022? Firstly, Easter sales for 2022 will be better than that in 2020 and 2021, with a combination of the COVID-19 pandemic and a stagnating economy had its impact. However, a lot of the perfect storm aspects are still with us, including cash-strapped consumers. Secondly, there will be an uptick in credit solutions for both consumers and businesses to make the most of the Easter sales season. And thirdly, there will be some shift in consumption expenditure also in the coastal and rural areas as many people go on holiday and home. So there's an opportunity for retailers in those areas. So having said all of this, the question remains, can retailers thrive during an Easter perfect storm? And the answer is yes, we can. However, we have to keep in mind that the perfect storm will continue for a long time, and it's important that retailers optimize for success during the perfect storm and capitalize on opportunities as and when they present themselves. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Back to you, Alicia.
Running aside, I can compare it with someone with MBA. You need to be a master in finance, you need to be a master in operations, you need to be a master in HR. As a successful business owner, you need to be disciplined, number one, and then be alert. When there is an opportunity out there, be able to identify the gap and take it before anyone else take it. You don't wait for opportunities to come your way, you go and find and make it happen. Capital Connect is like my secret weapon because I can confidently go and engage on new deals, knowing that when I go and request money, I'll be able to get it within 24 hours. Applying for the funding with Capital Connect is very easy. You just go to the app and then apply on the app. It's easy as click and borrow. You click now, 24 hours later, you've got the money in your account. I remember doing it around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the following day, the money was in my account. That's how quick they were. For me, the turnaround time regarding accessing the funds was outstanding. You click, you get your funding. Simple as that.
And there you have it, straight from one of South Africa's retail business owners. Now for the next item on our agenda, we're going to be extrapolating on some of the research findings that were just presented to us. And Stephen Helbron, who's CEO of the Connect Group and also spokesperson of Capital Connect, joining me for that. Stephen, welcome and thanks so much for your time this morning. Thanks for being with us. Right at the top, Easter trading season is upon us. Considering this perfect storm that we've just been presented with, load shedding, fuel price increases, inflation, all of the other factors that Carol presented to us as well this morning, in your opinion, is Easter 2022 still the golden opportunity for our retail merchants to cash in and thrive on?
Hi, Alicia. Thank you. Definitely is my answer. And not only do I say definitely, I want to share with you that in the 2 preceding months, I'm talking really the months of March and February, we have put records amounts of capital into our retailers' hands. So these are retailers that are preparing for the Easter period. I want to also share the fact that our retailers have become resilient. We talk about load shedding, but in reality, this is not a new challenge to our retailers, and people have been able to pivot and they have workarounds. COVID in itself presented a significant challenge to the South African retail environment. But, we talk about the wisdom of endurance. These retailers through COVID have addressed their in-store shopping experience, their omni-channel, their click and buy, their collection process, their physical experience, their online experience. So I think the test that South African retailers have faced over the period as we go into these storms has actually, for many of them, remember, I just want to share there are two types of retailers. There's those who think they can, and there's those who think they can't. They're both right. Those who think they can have pivoted, have prepared themselves, they are robust, they are resilient, and we are seeing them prepare themselves for what we expect to be a very good Easter period.
Well, you certainly make it sound so simple, so easy at the end of the day, and the examples that you've highlighted with us are really putting into the spotlight some of the entrepreneurs and how they're spotting and grabbing opportunities out there. So, Stephen, where there's this saying, you need money to make money, what's your take on that? How much merit in that for retail investors to actually thrive this Easter?
Well, Alicia, let me just share something with you. First of all, there's a little bit of a misconception sometimes amongst some retailers in South Africa that people who borrow money are borrowing money to survive. The type of capital we provide is opportunity capital. This is not capital to survive. This is capital to thrive and to grow and to move the needle. That's the first thing I want to deal with. The second thing I want to deal with is, you need money. Your point was you need money to grow, or you need money to grow, to instill growth. But I want to share an experience with you that I had recently with a room full of entrepreneurs. Their complaint was that they wanted to grow their businesses, but their biggest constraint was their inaccessibility to capital. And when they did have accessibility to capital, it was too expensive. So I put it to them that fine, we'll give them capital and we'll give it to them for free. The issue then became, it's all very well that you can have access to capital, but what you really need is idea generation and creativity. So yes, the very reason behind us establishing Capital Connect was for us to solve this pain point. We will give you immediate access to capital. But capital without innovation, entrepreneurship, is a gun half loaded. So what we've seen over the last period is many of our retailers have hidden behind the fact that I can't get capital, capital's too expensive, when in fact often the issue lies in idea generation and creativity. So again, I want to say that I'm very excited to say that we've seen the retail sector become incredibly robust. We've put records amount of capital into the market over the last 90 days, and we are seeing a particular type of retailer use this capital, and we refer to it as opportunity capital, and they use it to grab their share of the market.
So bottom line, you're saying that with alternative business funding solutions on the table, retailers have just no excuse when it comes to accessing funding. But the key question, Stephen, is how does a business loan from Capital Connect compare with that of a traditional lender?
Okay, that's a very good question, Alicia. The traditional model for getting credit would be you would call your bank, you would ask for an appointment. A banker might come to see you, or you might go to see them. They would require a set of audited financial statements and management accounts. They would ask you a series of questions, and then they would go back and take that through their credit process at the bank. And after a couple of weeks or days, they might come back to you with an answer. It's a very slow and often robust process, but the issue around opportunity capital and agility is not addressed. What we do at Capital Connect is we analyze data and we have the data models that allow us to pick up on certain data points, which allow us to approve that credit within a number of minutes, actually, and sometimes even seconds. And this allows us to put that money into our retailer's bank account, often definitely within 24 hours and often under an hour. And this is done without the requirement for management accounts, audited financials. It's done by looking at certain data sets and data points, which our algorithms look at. And this makes the accessibility to credit readily available for the retail market.
Stephen, I'm going to bring Professor Karel van Aert back into the conversation here. I mean, having listened to all that we have up to this point, Karel, and having compiled the research study that you have, what strategies, in your view, would you recommend retailers implement or start to adopt in order to capitalize on some of the growth opportunities that are on offer over the Easter period?
Thank you so much for the question. The Market Intelligence Research Unit at the Bureau of Market Research, what we do is on a continuous basis is to analyze the consumer market. And in the consumer market, you've basically got the consumers that demand specific products and services. You've got specific suppliers of that services, and then you've got a marketplace where they actually meet. And what we found there is that there are 4 basic strategies that if you, for example, adopt these strategies, your chance of actually getting more consumers to buy your products and services compared to your competitors is just so much greater. And the first one of that is to have a customer mindset, to basically say the customer is king. I really want to serve the customers. I really want to listen to the customers. I really want to understand the customers, and then also to enhance the customer experience, to ensure that there's a shop attainment for the customer, that the customer really feel good about you. That's the first one. Then the second one is basically to have a focus very strongly on continuous advertising and marketing to really get the message out to your customers. And what we've often found there is that quite a lot of retailers use a shotgun approach, in the sense, for example, that they just put a message out there and they hope that it hit. And the real effective retailers in this case are retailers that really understand their market, that continuously speak to their customers, and also understand what media their customers are accessing, and ensure that they are really onto social media to really speak to their customers and allow the customers to actually speak back to them. And then the next one is to diversify not just their product ranges, but also their service ranges. Firstly, product ranges is to ensure that on a continuous basis that you innovate with respect to the products that you've got, and also then to hear from the customers what new products they actually want. And what often happens is that a lot of retailers have only got a very small range of products. And when those products become redundant, they start to panic and they don't see new opportunities. They rather see obstacles. And that's what Stephen indicated, for example, that quite a lot of these retailers are not doing very well because they become stunted. And then the final one then is to have access to funds. And I just want to link up with Stephen as well, that indicated that funds shouldn't just be to survive, because quite a lot of people grab funds with that when they are experiencing difficult times, etc. But it's really very important to expand your business. I don't think there's such a thing as a stagnating business. You're either dying or you're growing. If you're not growing, you are dying. And to grow your business, you need to have access to funds, and you need to have access to that funds quickly, and you should use that funds then to continuously diversify your product range, your service range, etc. And as Stephen also indicated, to build your omni-channel, to ensure, for example, that there's platforms in place for you to engage with your consumer and your consumer to engage with you.
So, despite being amidst a perfect storm, it's clear that there are opportunities for retailers to leverage off this Easter. Professor van Aert, thanks so much for your insights today. Stephen Helbron, thank you for joining us from your end as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been unpacking this morning latest research that's been released on hashtag Easter Retail for 2022, the trends associated with that as well. And before we start taking a look at your questions and giving you some practical tips and advice on how to make the most of Easter retail trade this year, let's take a quick ad break. We're back straight after this. Welcome back, and we're ready for our Q&A session this morning. I'm sure you're eager to engage with the experts at your disposal this morning on any questions that the session this morning has triggered for you. If you've got a question, please make use of that chat box. It's at the bottom of your screen. Remember to add your name to that question too. And if we run out of time on this forum specifically, feel free to send any questions you might have through to marketing@connected.co.za. I'm going to be handing over at this point to Isadora Isaacs now, who's going to be facilitating this morning's Q&A session for us. Isadora, over to you.
Alicia, thank you very much. Some real great insights I think that's been shared today. I think most of all, very refreshing to hear such a great message of hope for our retailers, despite the perfect storm that we are experiencing. I think just on to the first question that's come in. This is from someone in the audience, Dunia Kitchenberg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, Professor. This question is posed to you. In your view, what can smaller retailers do to also get a piece of this Easter pie? Over to you, Prof.
Thank you so much for the question. I think what's very important here is that, especially for quite a lot of small retailers in South Africa, is to have firstly that positive mindset. It's just that I found, for example, in speaking to a lot of your smaller retailers, that quite a lot of them have got a very negative mindset. They actually are focusing on survival instead of actually growing their businesses. So that positive mindset is number one. Secondly, is that it's very important for them to have a plan, to have a strategy of how to grow their business. And what's really shocking to me is that when you speak to quite a lot of your smaller retailers in South Africa, there's no written plan. And there's the old saying that if you failing to plan, you're planning to fail. So it's very important to have a written plan and actually to implement that plan and also to ensure, for example, that you are moving towards a specific target. Very important for you is to have in your plan successive approximations towards your goal. So that would then mean is that you should have measurable sub-goals to ensure that you are on track. So this is the most important part for me, is to be positive mindset, to have a plan and to implement that plan.
Prof, thank you very much. Another question which came in from the audience. This one is for Stephen Helbron. Stephen, hi. What would a retailer typically use opportunity capital for in order to cash in Easter 2022 period?
Sure. Hi, Isadora. I can't help myself. I just want to go back to that question that Prof answered. The smaller retail, I just want to make the point as well, and I love all the points that Prof made, but I think the smaller retailer as well needs to focus on the things that they can differentiate on. So if you're small and nimble, you've got to play it to your game. And the nice thing about small is they say in South Africa, local is lekker. And when you go into a small store, if the owner knows you and they know what you normally buy, and they're able to make sure that they have it and they can talk to you about it, and that sometimes it's ready and that it's a personal experience. You cannot get that in a big store. So my point would be very much play to your strengths. When you're small and agile and nimble, then shopping on the high street close to home is a real advantage, and the big players can't emulate that. To your question, as I said to you before, we've seen records amounts of capital go out in the last 90 days. A lot of it has been used for the following. We've had a number of fuel increases. We've seen a lot of fuel retailers bulking up, buying in advance of buying into the face of those increases, so that they have are able to take advantage of the capital that we provide in order to buy at discounted prices. And we're seeing that right across the piece. We've seen a lot of people focusing on using our capital to improve their client-centric strategies, which the Prof touched on, and improving their in-store experience, which is really going to attract the feet into their store over the Easter period, and also developing their omni-channel, which is their delivery services, their click and collect services, their marketing messages. And then lastly, we've seen a lot of people also improving and expanding their product range and using the capital that we provide to broaden the experience and to get a deeper share of the customer wallet. So hopefully that gives you a sense of some of the things that we've seen. And more broadly, of course, we've seen expansion, which people use this not just to renovate stores, but to expand the physical stores that they have. And of course, as I've said, I've already dealt with the inventory-related issues.
Thank you, Stephen. One question, let me just see. This is from a retailer based in Cape Town. How do I apply to get capital for Easter? Am I too late? Stephen, I think that one will go to you as well.
Sure, it's never too late. I mean, I think that is the value. I think you would be able to go online, visit our website, or download our app. Submit your application. We will evaluate that application for you as we, in accordance with our algorithms, within seconds and minutes, and we will respond accordingly. So you maybe want to help me give a URL address if somebody wants to find that who's not an existing customer of ours already. But as I said, otherwise download the app or go online to Capital Connect.
Yes, most definitely. You can simply go to the Connected app that is available on iOS and Android stores. You can also go to our website, which is getcapital.co.za. Simply go to the click and borrow form. Once completed, one of our consultants will phone you straight back. And there you've got it. Then you have to click and borrow, and the funds will be in your account in 24 hours, and you can capitalize on Easter, so it's not late.
Thanks, Sume. I think there's one or two more questions that's come in. This one is from Sabu Twala. Hi, everyone. I think, Prof, this question will go to you. I am a retailer trading in a small mining town where there's issues of labor unrest. What strategies can I implement to survive in such an environment?
Thank you so much for that question. It's always very, very difficult to survive within a very unstable social or political environment. One of the things that often happen there for retailers is that they start focusing on the negative stuff, like, for example, the unrest there, etc. And we also saw that during the recent political and economic unrest that we've had across the country. However, it's just that Stephen already indicated that this as well. You have to start focusing rather on your strengths as a retailer and ask yourself, given the difficult situation that I am in, how can I address this situation? So what you'll find, for example, with quite a lot of your smaller retailers that are operating in very difficult areas is that they actually develop that omni-channel. And the simple start of that, for example, is to create a network also to other towns and to other places, for example, not being hit by unrest, etc., to ensure that you've actually got more places where you can sell your various products and services. That for me is number one, to expand your network, to build your network, and also to build your omni-channel. very interesting in this regard is that more and more of your small retailers are realizing the benefits also of selling via social media, for example, like Facebook Marketplace, etc. And a lot of those sales then happen outside of the area where you are, that's hit by unrest, etc. So I think that is one of the most important ways of mitigating the impacts of that. Then just finally, is just that you also have to ask yourself, is just that those people being hit by unrest, are there specific things that that they need, but that you're not supplying at the moment, because that could be a marketing opportunity for you?
Prof, thank you very much. Alicia, I'm handing back to you. It seems there's no other questions which have come in. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Stephen.
And thank you, Isadora, for facilitating that session for us. I think we've gotten to the point now that most of us have been anticipating, and not that we've not had some handy tips strewn along this conversation already. We're going to be wrapping things up with Stephen and Professor Carol right now. I'm going to give each of them the opportunity at this point to provide some of our guests on top tips, any advice that they might have in hand, recommendations on tools that can be used by South African retailers to ensure that they make the most of Easter 2022. And Stephen, let's start off with you on the far end.
Yeah, so I think the point that we wanted to make up front is that it's in the eye of the beholder. So one has to be positive in facing the storm, but you have to outthink your competitors. You have to outsmart them, you know. So outthink, don't outmuscle. If you're not the strongest kid in the class, you need to be smart. And you know, if you're thinking strategically, you don't want to run the same race faster. You want to be running a different race and find the opportunity. Use capital so that you can be first or fast to take an opportunity to your customer base, and focus very much on the customer, the omni-channel, and making sure that you innovate on a daily basis. So the point I would make is, don't wait for the Easter periods or for Black Friday, for the Black Friday. Sorry, it's the shopping period. I can't remember, Black November, whatever we call it. The point really would be is that every single day is a day that you should be innovating and building your business. And opportunity capital is there 24/7. And the retailers that are succeeding are those that continually outsmart and compete.
Let's clear that up. It's Black Friday in November. Okay, Carol, let's bring it to you. I mean, like I say, you've given us gems through the course of this conversation this morning already, but any practical tips that you'd like to add?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think practical tip number one for me is that you as a retailer, may that be a smaller or medium or a larger retailer, it's very important that you first arrive at the practical understanding of what your clients would be buying during Easter sale season. And it's also very important for them, for these retailers, to actually speak to their customers, also to access quite a lot of data that's available on the internet, looking at what these people are buying. Secondly, that is also very important for you. A very practical tip is to create shop attainment for your clients. This is a festival season. It's a festive season. People, for example, are in a holiday mood, etc. And those of you that's very good at providing extra things to your customers. And that might be something as simple as providing Easter eggs, for example, to people visiting your shop, for example, or to provide chocolates, etc. But just that's something extra to your customers to entice them into your shop. And just a final one that I want to give you as a hint is that during the Easter sale season, we've seen, for example, that there will be some retailers that will be gaining and some, for example, that will be losing, as we've already discussed this morning. And as we've seen, those that are gaining are actually those ones that follow the 4 strategies that we've indicated that really engage their customers positively, and also the ones, for example, that during this period will be expanding their businesses, looking for growth opportunities, because there are quite a lot of growth opportunities in the Easter sale season.
On that note, gentlemen, thanks so much for having joined us this morning and for sharing your perspectives and your insights with us. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you all. And on that note, I'm going to be handing back to Sumay now so that she can more effectively wrap up today's #Easter Retail webinar for 2022. Sumay.
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, indeed. A very insightful presentation with loads of tips and tricks for retailers to have a really great Easter season that's now going to start. Well, already started, but now we're going into the deep eye. So, you know, as Stephen said earlier today, whether you believe you can or you can't, you are right. And as the Retail Funder of the Year 2021, we at Capital Connect believe that retailers can. So with quick access to capital, you can grab the opportunity to not just survive, but to thrive and expand and grow your business. So if you've tuned in today and you are interested in accessing that opportunity capital from Capital Connect, like I've mentioned earlier before, you can download the Connected app that's available on iOS or Android, or you can go to our website at getcapital.coza. And you can just click on the click and borrow form, and a consultant will phone you right back. If we have been unable to feature your question as part of the live Q&A today, it was due to time constraints, we ask you to still please send us your question at capital@connected.co.za or marketing@connected.coza. So to the media, remember that Isadora will share the press release and your press pack and pics with you straight after the webinar today. So from me, I wish all the retailers in South Africa a very successful Easter trading period. And to all our guests, our speakers, our clients, if you will be enjoying the long weekend, please travel safely. So from me and the team, it is God bless and goodbye.